Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another exciting episode of our podcast. Today, we're diving into a game-changing concept that can completely transform the way you approach work, relationships, and even life itself. It's called the 80-20 rule, or as some people know it, the Pareto principle.
That's right, Adam. The 80-20 rule is one of the most powerful tools you can use to boost your productivity, simplify your life, and achieve way more by doing less. Sounds too good to be true? Stick around because by the end of this episode, you'll not only understand how it works but also have actionable steps to implement it right away.
And here's the best part. We're not talking theory today. We've got real-life examples, relatable stories, and practical tips that you can start using before this episode even ends.
Think about it. What if 80% of your success comes from just 20% of your efforts? Imagine how much time, energy, and stress you could save if you focused on what truly matters.
So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's explore how working smarter, not harder, can help you take control of your life. Ready to unlock the power of the 80-20 rule? Let's get started. All right, let's dive right in. Have you ever felt like no matter how hard you work, you're just spinning your wheels? Like you're doing 100 things, but only a handful of them actually make a difference?
Exactly, Adam. Here's the kicker. Most of us are stuck in this endless loop because we don't know what really matters. Enter the 80-20 rule. This is the golden ticket to breaking that cycle. It's simple, powerful, and once you understand it, you'll never look at your to-do list the same way again.
Let me set the stage for you. The 80-20 rule, also called the Pareto principle, was discovered by an Italian economist named Vilfredo Pareto. Over 100 years ago, he noticed something fascinating. 80% of the land in Italy was owned by just 20% of the people. Now, here's where it gets mind-blowing. It's not just about land or wealth. This pattern shows up everywhere.
That's right. Think about it. In business, 80% of profits often come from just 20% of customers. In your daily life, 80% of your happiness might come from just 20% of your relationships. And get this, 80% of your productivity could come from just 20% of the tasks you do.
Wait, Sophia, are you saying this isn't just some fancy economic theory? It's like a universal law?
Exactly. It's like gravity. It's always there, whether you notice it or not. The 80-20 rule is about recognizing the imbalance between effort and results. And here's the best part. Once you identify that magic 20%, you can double down on it and get more results with less effort.
Okay, hold on. You're telling me that most of the stuff I'm stressing over, the endless emails, the tiny tasks, the meetings that go nowhere, probably isn't even moving the needle?
Exactly, Adam. Here's the hook. Not all tasks are created equal. Some things give you massive returns for your effort, while others are just noise. The trick is learning to spot the difference. And trust me, once you do, it's like a superpower. You'll feel more in control, less stressed, and way more productive.
Wow. So, let me ask the audience this. What's your 20%? Can you think of that one or two things you do every day that really make an impact? Because if you can identify those, you're already halfway there.
Exactly, Adam. And if you're not sure yet, don't worry. We're going to break it down for you step by step. Coming up, we'll show you how to find your 20%, apply this rule in different areas of your life, and dodge the traps that keep you stuck in the other 80%. Trust me, you don't want to miss this.
All right. Let's get real for a moment. How many of us have felt this constant pressure to do more? You wake up, you're juggling tasks all day, and by the time your head hits the pillow, you feel like you've barely scratched the surface. Why is overwork such a universal struggle?
Adam, you've hit the nail on the head. Overwork has become a badge of honor in our society. We've been taught that if you're not hustling, grinding, or burning the midnight oil, you're somehow falling behind. It's this toxic idea that the harder you work, the more successful you'll be. But let me ask you this. How often does that actually work out?
Rarely. I mean, think about it. How many people do you know who are working themselves to exhaustion, but still feel stuck, like they're not getting anywhere? Honestly, I've been there myself.
Same here, Adam. And here's the kicker. Overwork often leads to burnout, not breakthroughs. The truth is, most of us are confusing busyness with productivity. We think being constantly busy means we're being effective, but in reality, we're just running on a hamster wheel.
Okay, I'm with you. But why do we fall into this trap so easily? Is it just because society glorifies it, or is there something deeper going on?
Great question. There are a few reasons. First, there's fear. Fear of failure. Fear of missing out. Fear of not being good enough. So, we try to do everything in the hopes that something will stick. Then there's perfectionism. A lot of us feel like we can't let go of control because no one else can do it as well as we can.
That hits home. I used to say yes to every little thing, thinking I'd lose opportunities if I didn't. But looking back, I was spreading myself way too thin.
Exactly. And here's the crazy part. Overwork feels productive in the moment because you're busy, you're ticking things off your list, you're moving. But it's like trying to fill a bucket with a hole in it. The energy you're pouring in isn't being used efficiently.
Wow, that's such a powerful analogy. So basically, we're wasting energy on tasks that don't actually matter in the long run. But why don't we stop and reassess?
Because it's scary. It's hard to admit that 80% of what you're doing might not be moving the needle. It feels counterintuitive to step back when everything is screaming at you to push forward. But here's the hook, Adam. If you don't step back and focus on your priorities, you'll never break out of the cycle. And trust me, the cost of burnout is far greater than the cost of slowing down.
That's such a wake-up call. So let me ask the audience. Are you spending your days putting out fires, or are you working on what truly matters? If you're stuck in the busyness trap, don't worry. In the next segment, we're going to help you figure out how to identify your 20%, the tasks that actually drive results, and free yourself from the cycle of overwork. You don't want to miss it.
Absolutely. Because once you start working smarter, not harder, you'll realize how much more time, energy, and joy you can bring into your life. Stick with us, and we'll show you how to make it happen.
All right, let's get into the real magic of the 80-20 rule. We've talked about overwork and how most of what we do isn't actually making a big difference. Now let's answer the million-dollar question. How do you figure out your 20%? How do you find the tasks, people, or activities that truly move the needle?
Great question, Adam. Here's where it gets exciting because once you identify your 20%, everything changes. You'll feel less stressed, you'll achieve more, and you'll finally have the clarity to focus on what matters most. So let's break it down step by step, shall we?
Absolutely. But before we dive into the steps, let's paint a picture for the audience. Imagine this. What if 80% of your income came from just 20% of your clients? What if 80% of your happiness came from only 20% of your relationships? What if 80% of your productivity came from just 20% of your daily tasks? Crazy, right?
Crazy, but true. And here's the beauty of it. It's not just a theory. This applies to almost every area of your life. So, how do you find that 20%? Step 1. Start with a time audit.
A time audit? That sounds intimidating. Can you break it down for us?
Of course, a time audit is just a fancy way of saying, track how you spend your time. For 1 week, write down everything you do and how much time you spend on it. Then, look back and ask yourself, which activities brought the biggest results or made you feel the most accomplished? Those are your 20% tasks.
That's such a simple yet powerful exercise. But I know some people might struggle to figure out what's truly impactful. Any tips for identifying those high-value activities?
Absolutely. Look for patterns. Ask yourself, 1. What tasks directly contribute to your goals or success? 2. Which activities give you the highest return on investment, whether it's time, energy, or money? 3. What do you enjoy doing that also delivers results? Chances are your 20% will tick at least 2 of these boxes.
Wow, Sophia. This is already making me rethink my daily routine. Let's give the audience some concrete examples. For me, in podcasting, I realized that creating engaging topics and interacting with our listeners account for 80% of our success. Editing and admin work, that's in the other 80%.
Exactly. For me, it's similar. Coaching and delivering value through conversations are my 20%. The rest, like obsessing over email formatting or spending hours tweaking minor details, is low impact. Here's another example. In fitness, 20% of exercises often give you 80% of your results. Focus on compound movements like squats and deadlifts, and you'll see a massive difference compared to doing 10 different isolation exercises.
So it's about focusing on the big moves that create the biggest impact. But what about the low-value tasks? What do you do with those?
Great question, Adam. The trick is to eliminate, automate, or delegate the other 80%. If it's not critical and doesn't drive results, get rid of it. If it's repetitive, find a way to automate it. And if someone else can do it, delegate it. Free up your time and energy for your 20%.
I love that. Eliminate, automate, delegate. But let me play devil's advocate for a second. What if someone feels like they can't let go of certain tasks, either because of perfectionism or fear of things going wrong?
That's such a common struggle. And here's the hook. Perfectionism is the enemy of progress. You have to trust the process. Start small. Let go of 1 or 2 low-value tasks and see how it feels. I promise, once you see the results, it'll become easier to let go of more.
So to all our listeners, here's your challenge. Take 15 minutes today and write down everything you did yesterday. Then highlight the tasks that truly mattered. That's your first step toward finding your 20%.
Exactly. Because once you find that 20%, you unlock the ability to work smarter, not harder. And in the next segment, we're going to show you how to apply the 80-20 rule to different areas of your life: work, relationships, learning, and more. Stay with us, because this is where the magic gets practical.
All right, Sophia. We've talked about what the 80-20 rule is and how to identify that magical 20% in your life. Now, let's take it a step further. How do you apply this rule in different areas of your life? Because I'm guessing it's not a one-size-fits-all kind of thing.
Exactly, Adam. The beauty of the 80-20 rule is its versatility. Whether it's your career, relationships, health, or even personal growth, this principle works like a secret formula for efficiency. So let's break it down area by area and show our audience how to start implementing it today.
Perfect. Let's start with work, probably the area where people feel the most overwhelmed. Sophia, how do you use the 80-20 rule in your professional life?
Great question. In work, it's all about focusing on the tasks that drive results. For example, in a sales job, 20% of your clients might generate 80% of your revenue. So instead of spreading your energy across every single client, prioritize those high-value relationships. Similarly, in creative work, like what we do here, 20% of our efforts, like brainstorming impactful topics, drive 80% of our audience engagement. What about you, Adam? Any work examples?
Definitely. For me, I realized that a lot of time goes into things like email and scheduling, which don't really move the needle. Outsourcing those tasks allowed me to focus on the bigger picture, like connecting with our audience and improving the podcast.
Exactly. And for everyone listening, the first step is to identify your work's high-impact activities. Then, either eliminate or delegate the rest. Trust me, your productivity will skyrocket.
Okay, let's shift gears. What about relationships? How does the 80-20 rule apply to our personal lives?
Oh, relationships are a big one. Think about it. 80% of your happiness likely comes from just 20% of your relationships, the ones that truly matter. Instead of spreading yourself thin across casual acquaintances, focus on nurturing those deep, meaningful connections. Spend time with the people who uplift you, challenge you, and bring joy to your life.
I love that. It's so true. When you focus on quality over quantity, your relationships become more fulfilling. But how do you handle those relationships that drain your energy? You know, the ones in the other 80%?
That's where boundaries come in, Adam. If a relationship feels one-sided or toxic, it's okay to step back. The 80-20 rule isn't just about maximizing results, it's also about protecting your time and energy for what truly matters.
Wow, that's powerful. Okay, let's move to another big one, health and fitness. Sophia, how can we use the 80-20 rule here?
This is one of my favorite areas. In fitness, for instance, 20% of exercises often deliver 80% of your results. Focus on compound movements like squats, deadlifts, and push-ups. They work multiple muscle groups and give you the best bang for your buck. The same goes for diet. 20% of what you eat could be causing 80% of your health problems. Cut out the junk, and you'll see a massive difference.
That's such a practical way to look at it. And for those who feel overwhelmed by health goals, this is a great reminder. You don't have to do everything. Just focus on the key habits that matter most.
Exactly. And speaking of habits, let's talk about personal growth. In this area, 20% of what you learn or practice often leads to 80% of your growth. For example, reading a few impactful books or learning specific skills can transform your life more than endlessly scrolling through random content.
That's so true. For me, it was learning time management and communication skills. Those two things have had a ripple effect across every part of my life. What about you, Sophia?
For me, it's been journaling and mindfulness. Those small practices keep me grounded and focused, which helps me show up better in every area of life. And here's a fun fact. Even learning languages follows the 80-20 rule. By mastering the 20% most used words in a language, you can understand 80% of daily conversations.
That's incredible. So for everyone listening, the takeaway here is simple. Don't try to do it all. Find the key actions in each area of your life that create the biggest impact and focus on those. It's about working smarter, not harder. All right, Sophia, we've covered what the 80-20 rule is, why overwork keeps us trapped, and how to apply this principle in different areas of life. But now, let's talk about the real payoff. What happens when you start working smarter, not harder? What are the tangible benefits of focusing on that magical 20%?
Adam, this is the fun part because once you embrace working smarter, the transformation is undeniable. Let's start with the big one. More time. By cutting out the noise and focusing on the essentials, you suddenly find yourself with hours of free time that you didn't think you had.
That's such a game changer. Imagine going from feeling like you're drowning in work to actually having time to relax, pursue hobbies, or just breathe. But it's not just about time, right? What else do you gain?
Not at all. The second big benefit is better results. When you're laser-focused on the tasks and activities that matter most, your output improves. Instead of doing 10 mediocre things, you're doing 2 or 3 things exceptionally well. Whether it's in your career, your relationships, or your personal goals, the quality of your work skyrockets.
That's huge. And I feel like there's a third benefit here, less stress. When you're not constantly trying to do everything, you don't feel that overwhelming pressure. You're in control of your time and energy instead of being controlled by an endless to-do list.
Exactly, Adam. Working smarter gives you clarity, and clarity is the ultimate stress reliever. You wake up knowing what to focus on instead of feeling pulled in a million directions. And here's a bonus. You also build momentum. By consistently working on high-impact tasks, you see progress faster, which motivates you to keep going.
That's such an important point. Progress feels amazing, and it's addictive in the best way. But I'm sure there's another layer to this, Sophia. What about the long-term benefits?
Oh, the long-term benefits are massive. First, you get to experience sustainable success. Because you're not burning yourself out trying to do everything, you're able to stay consistent over time. And consistency beats intensity every single day of the week.
That's so true. And I think another long-term benefit is room for creativity. When you're not stuck in the weeds, your brain has the space to think big, dream big, and innovate. That's where real breakthroughs happen.
Absolutely. And let's not forget confidence. When you see that working smarter gets you better results, you trust yourself more. You stop second-guessing every decision because you know you're focusing on what truly matters.
Sophia, this is gold. So for everyone listening, imagine this. More time, less stress, better results, faster progress, and the freedom to be creative. Doesn't that sound like the life you've been chasing?
It's not just a dream, it's possible, and it starts with making the shift from busy work to smart work. And here's the hook. If you're feeling stuck or overwhelmed, this principle could be the breakthrough you've been waiting for.
Couldn't have said it better myself. But Sophia, I know some people listening might be thinking, this sounds great, but where do I start? Don't worry, we've got you covered in the next segment, where we'll share practical strategies to implement the 80-20 rule in your everyday life. So stick around, because the best is yet to come.
Yes. Trust me, you don't want to miss this. The tools we're about to share could completely transform how you approach your day. Let's make working smarter your new superpower.
All right, Sophia. Let's address the elephant in the room. While the 80-20 rule sounds like a magic formula, there's a lot of confusion and myths surrounding it. People either misunderstand it, oversimplify it, or think it's too good to be true. So, let's bust some of those myths wide open.
Absolutely, Adam. Because while the 80-20 rule is a game changer, it's not a one-size-fits-all miracle. People often misinterpret it, and that can lead to frustration or even failure. So, myth number 1. The 80-20 rule means you can ignore the 80% entirely. What do you think about that, Adam?
Oh, I hear this one all the time. People think, if I only need the 20%, why even bother with the rest? But here's the catch. The 80% isn't always useless. It still has its place. For example, in relationships, your 80% might be casual acquaintances or coworkers who don't impact your life deeply, but they still add value in small ways.
Exactly. The 80% often supports the 20%. Think of it like a pyramid. The foundation, your 80%, is what keeps your 20% standing tall. You don't ignore it, you just don't let it dominate your focus.
That's such a good analogy. Okay, myth number 2. The 80-20 rule is only for business or work. What's your take on this, Sophia?
Total myth. The 80-20 rule applies to every area of life. Whether it's your health, hobbies, finances, or even learning a new skill, the principle holds. For example, when learning a language, mastering 20% of the most common words can help you understand 80% of everyday conversations. It's universal.
Absolutely. And here's another myth I hear a lot. The 80-20 rule is just an excuse to be lazy. People think working smarter means cutting corners, but that's not the case at all, right?
Not at all, Adam. In fact, it's the opposite. The 80-20 rule is about being intentional. It's not about doing less. It's about doing the right things so you can achieve more. If anything, it requires discipline to focus on the critical 20% and let go of the distractions.
That's such an important distinction. Working smarter doesn't mean slacking off. It means doubling down on what really matters. Okay, myth number 4. The 80-20 rule is a quick fix. This one drives me crazy.
Me too. The 80-20 rule is powerful, but it's not a magic wand. It requires time, reflection, and constant adjustment. You have to experiment to figure out what your 20% is, and even then, it might change over time as your goals and priorities evolve.
Exactly. It's not about overnight success. It's about building sustainable habits that pay off in the long run. And finally, myth number 5. Anyone can apply the 80-20 rule perfectly. What do you say to that, Sophia?
Perfection? Forget it. The 80-20 rule is a guideline, not a rigid law. It's not about hitting 80% and 20% exactly. It's about understanding the concept and applying it in a way that works for you. Sometimes it might look more like 70-30 or 90-10, and that's okay.
That's such an important point. It's about progress, not perfection. So to everyone listening, don't let these myths hold you back. The 80-20 rule isn't about doing less or finding shortcuts. It's about working smarter, focusing on impact, and creating a life of balance and purpose.
Exactly. And now that we've cleared up these misconceptions, we're going to dive into actionable strategies for making the 80-20 rule work for you, no matter where you are in your life or career. Stick around, because the best is yet to come.
All right, Sophia, we've been talking about the power of the 80-20 rule, and we've busted some myths along the way. But here's the big question. Even with all this knowledge, why is it so hard for people to actually apply the 80-20 rule? Why do we resist making these changes, even when we know they could lead to massive improvements?
Great question, Adam. The truth is, resistance to change is normal. We're creatures of habit, and even when we know something could make our lives easier or more effective, the idea of shifting our routine feels uncomfortable. It's kind of like when you know you need to exercise, but your couch is just too tempting.
Yeah, I get that. Change is challenging because it pushes us outside our comfort zone. So, what exactly is happening in our brains when we resist change? What's driving that pushback?
Great point. Our brains are wired to seek comfort and avoid uncertainty. When we make a change, we disrupt the familiar patterns our brain has created, and that feels risky. This is why even small shifts, like deciding to focus on the 20%, can feel overwhelming. Your brain says, "Hey, this is different. I'm not sure if this will work." It's kind of like going to a new gym for the first time. You're unfamiliar with the machines, the routines, and your body has to adjust.
That's a powerful analogy. So resistance isn't necessarily a sign that the change is bad, it's just the brain's natural reaction to something new.
Exactly. And here's the tricky part. The more we resist, the harder it becomes to break through. The brain gets used to the comfort zone, and that's why it's so easy to fall back into old habits. But here's the secret. The more you embrace small incremental changes, the easier it becomes to make the bigger shifts.
So it's about starting small, taking tiny steps toward working smarter, not jumping into a massive overhaul?
Exactly. Instead of trying to change everything overnight, break it down into bite-sized pieces. Start by identifying just one area where you can apply the 80-20 rule, maybe in your work or your daily routine. Once you see the benefits there, you'll feel more confident and motivated to apply it to other areas of your life.
I love that idea. It's all about building momentum. The more success you experience in one area, the more you start to believe in the power of working smarter.
Right, Adam. And one of the best ways to overcome resistance is to remind yourself of the why. Why do you want to work smarter? Why do you want to focus on what matters most? When you connect with that deeper motivation, whether it's to spend more time with family, achieve your career goals, or improve your health, the discomfort of change becomes easier to handle.
That's such a great point. Understanding your why creates a stronger sense of purpose, which makes the change feel less intimidating. But what about those times when you just don't feel motivated? What do you do then?
Motivation can be fleeting, so it's important to build systems that keep you on track. Set up routines and habits that make the 80-20 rule easier to follow. For example, schedule your high-impact tasks first thing in the morning when your energy is at its peak. Once it's in your calendar, it becomes less about motivation and more about commitment.
Love that. So, even on days when you don't feel like doing it, you've already created a system that ensures you stick to it.
Exactly. And don't forget the power of accountability. Share your goals with someone who can keep you in check, whether it's a friend, colleague, or even your audience if you're publicly committing to change. Knowing someone else is rooting for you can help you push through resistance.
That's so powerful. Having that external support can make a huge difference. So, to summarize, the key to overcoming resistance is starting small, connecting with your deeper motivation, building supportive routines, and holding yourself accountable. But even then, it's going to be a journey, right?
Absolutely. Change doesn't happen overnight, and there will be setbacks along the way. But every step you take toward working smarter is a step in the right direction. The resistance gets weaker the more you push through it.
So true. And for everyone listening, if you're feeling that resistance right now, just know you're not alone. It's part of the process. The more you practice, the easier it will get. So don't give up.
And don't forget, the rewards of working smarter are huge. Imagine a life with less stress, more free time, and better results. That's what you're working toward, and it's absolutely worth it.
All right, Sophia, we've talked about working smarter, breaking through resistance, and overcoming misconceptions about the 80-20 rule. But here's one more thing that people often struggle with when trying to implement it: saying no. It sounds simple, but learning to say no is one of the most powerful tools for working smarter, don't you think?
Absolutely, Adam. This is a big one. Saying no isn't just about rejecting tasks or people, it's about reclaiming your time and focus. It's about saying yes to what truly matters and no to distractions, to things that pull you away from your 20%. But I get it. Saying no can be uncomfortable for a lot of people.
Yeah, I've heard it a million times. People feel guilty for saying no, especially when it comes to requests from family, friends, or coworkers. But the truth is, every time you say yes to something that doesn't align with your priorities, you're saying no to something that does.
Exactly. It's a trade-off. Every yes comes at the expense of something else, whether it's your time, energy, or mental space. So to really embrace the 80-20 rule, you have to get comfortable with saying no. And here's the kicker. You don't have to feel guilty about it. Saying no is actually a form of self-respect.
That's such an important point. When you say no to things that don't align with your goals, you're saying yes to your own well-being and success. But how do we actually start saying no without feeling like we're being rude or letting people down?
It all starts with clarity. When you have a clear sense of your priorities, whether it's focusing on the critical 20% in your work or making time for personal goals, you can make decisions with confidence. When someone asks you to take on something that doesn't fit, you can kindly say no because you know it's not aligned with your priorities.
That's so true. It's all about being clear on what matters most to you. But sometimes, it's not just about saying no to others, it's also about saying no to yourself. For example, resisting the temptation to get sucked into distractions, like checking social media or binge-watching TV. How do you handle that, Sophia?
That's a great question, Adam. I think the key here is creating boundaries. When you set limits on your time, it's easier to say no to distractions. For instance, if you're focused on a deep work session, set a timer for no interruptions and use tools that block apps or websites that distract you. It's about creating an environment that supports your most important tasks.
That's brilliant. It's like saying no to distractions on a systemic level. But let's get practical for a second. Let's say you're in a situation where you feel pressured to say yes, like a colleague asks you for a favor at work, or a friend invites you out when you need to focus on a project. How do you handle those situations in a way that doesn't feel uncomfortable?
Great scenario. First, I'd recommend being polite but firm. You don't have to justify yourself or feel the need to explain in detail why you're saying no. You can simply say, "I'd love to help, but right now, I need to focus on insert priority. Maybe next time." By keeping it simple, you respect both your time and the other person's request.
That's such a solid approach, and you don't have to say no in a way that feels harsh or negative. It's all about being clear, respectful, and firm with your boundaries. But there's also the idea of saying no to things that don't serve your bigger vision, right?
Exactly. This is where saying no really becomes powerful. When you say no to the things that don't align with your bigger vision, whether it's an unproductive meeting, a task that doesn't contribute to your goals, or even a bad habit, you're actually saying yes to creating space for the things that will get you closer to your vision.
I love that. It's almost like every no is an opportunity for a bigger yes. By saying no to the small stuff, you free up mental space, time, and energy for the big wins. And here's a fun fact. Saying no actually gives you more control over your life.
That's so true. When you practice saying no, you become the gatekeeper of your time and energy. You stop being reactive and start being proactive about what you let into your life. And that's where the magic happens. When you're in control of your choices, you can focus on what matters most and achieve your goals faster.
So, to everyone listening, remember this. Saying no is not a negative thing. It's a strategic move, a way to protect your time, your focus, and your vision. And as hard as it may be at first, it gets easier with practice, and the rewards are huge.
Exactly. So, take a moment today to think about what you need to say no to. What can you stop doing to make more space for the things that matter most? Trust me, the power of saying no will change your life, and it's a key part of working smarter, not harder.
All right, let's shift gears and dive into something that's on a lot of people's minds. How can the 80-20 rule apply to business and career growth? We've been talking about personal productivity, but now let's break it down in the context of building a successful career or growing a business. Sophia, what do you think? How can this rule be a game changer in the workplace?
Great question, Adam. The 80-20 rule is a total game changer in business. Whether you're an entrepreneur, a manager, or even just starting your career, applying the 80-20 rule can help you focus on what truly drives results and growth. And let me tell you, this isn't just a theory. It's something that successful entrepreneurs and business leaders use every day.
Absolutely. So let's start with business owners. How can they apply the 80-20 rule to make their businesses thrive?
Okay, first off, for business owners, the 80-20 rule can be applied to nearly everything, from customer acquisition to product development. In simple terms, 80% of your revenue likely comes from just 20% of your customers. So, if you're a business owner, the key is identifying and nurturing that top 20%, the loyal customers who are driving the most profit. Instead of spreading your marketing efforts too thin, you focus on serving your best clients even better.
Wow, that's powerful. So instead of trying to appeal to everyone, they should double down on the people who are already loyal and generating the most value?
Exactly. And here's the kicker. Those 20% customers will also tell you what your business really needs. They'll give you insights on how to improve products, customer service, or marketing strategies. So, by focusing on that core group, you're creating a stronger foundation for growth.
That makes so much sense. It's all about focusing on the high-impact actions that produce the best results. But what about employees or people climbing the career ladder? How can they apply the 80-20 rule in their jobs?
Great point. For employees, the 80-20 rule is about identifying the high-value activities that contribute to career growth. It's easy to get caught up in tasks that are busy but don't drive your goals forward. Instead, you need to focus on the 20% of activities that will directly impact your promotions, learning, and professional relationships.
Such as?
Well, think about it. In many careers, networking, strategic projects, and skill development make up the 20% that will lead to 80% of your growth. If you spend your days attending meetings that don't move the needle or working on tasks that don't showcase your abilities, you're not applying the 80-20 rule.
So, employees should be constantly evaluating which tasks or projects are truly moving the needle for their careers, and focus on those, right?
Exactly. Let's say you're a marketer. The 20% of campaigns or channels that are generating the most leads or sales should get the most of your time and attention. Similarly, if you're working on a project with your team, focus on the critical milestones or decisions that will push the project forward, rather than getting lost in every tiny detail.
I love that. It's about being strategic with your time, not just being busy. Now, let's talk about scaling a business using the 80-20 rule. For someone who wants to grow their small business into something big, how do they apply this?
Scaling is a perfect example of where the 80-20 rule really shines. As your business grows, you'll encounter more distractions, more tasks, more employees, more decisions to make. The trick is identifying the few key processes that will allow your business to scale without drowning in the noise. A great example is automating or outsourcing the tasks that aren't part of your core competency, so you can focus your energy on the key areas of growth.
So, if you're a tech startup founder, for instance, instead of getting bogged down in customer service calls, you might use automation or hire someone to handle those tasks, freeing up your time to focus on things like product development or attracting investors.
Exactly. And it's the same for career growth. Let's say you want to get promoted to a higher position. Rather than focusing on every single skill in your job description, you should focus on the few key skills and relationships that will help you stand out. Build expertise in one or two areas and show your value in those areas.
That makes perfect sense. So, to recap, whether you're a business owner or working in a corporate job, the 80-20 rule is all about finding the high-impact areas that lead to the biggest results and focusing your energy there. It's not about doing more, it's about doing what matters most.
Right. And once you master this mindset, you'll see massive shifts in productivity, profitability, and career success. It's about working smarter, finding that 20% that makes all the difference and putting your time and energy into it.
All right, Sophia, we've covered the theory, the benefits, and the strategies behind the 80-20 rule. But here's the part that's going to really inspire our listeners. Real-life success stories. It's one thing to hear about a concept, but when you see it applied in the real world and see the incredible results, it hits differently. So, let's talk about some success stories where the 80-20 rule truly transformed lives, careers, and businesses.
I love this part, Adam. The beauty of the 80-20 rule is that it's not just some abstract idea. It's something that real people, real businesses, and even major global companies have used to achieve extraordinary success. One of the best examples comes from the world of entrepreneurship, the story of how Richard Branson grew his Virgin Empire.
Branson is such a great example. He didn't start with unlimited resources, but he understood early on that he had to focus on the 20% of his business that would drive the most growth. Can you dive into that?
Absolutely. Richard Branson didn't try to do everything when he started Virgin. He focused on one thing, creating an exceptional customer experience. His strategy was simple but powerful. He made sure that in every Virgin business, from airlines to music stores, he delivered a unique, high-quality service. Instead of spreading himself thin, he focused on what would set him apart in each market. And by focusing on that 20%, Virgin grew into a multi-billion-dollar company.
That's amazing. By focusing on customer experience and quality, he was able to cut through the noise and dominate his industry. But you don't have to be a billionaire entrepreneur to see results, right? The 80-20 rule applies to people at all levels.
Exactly. Another great example is someone like Tim Ferriss, the author of The 4-Hour Workweek. Tim used the 80-20 rule to completely redesign his life. He wanted to escape the 9-to-5 grind, and he realized that he didn't need to work harder, but work smarter. He identified the 20% of his business that produced the majority of his income and outsourced everything else. He used this strategy to not only scale his business, but also create a lifestyle that gave him more freedom and flexibility.
Tim Ferriss is such a perfect example of how the 80-20 rule can revolutionize both your career and personal life. By focusing on the high-impact activities and automating or delegating the rest, he was able to design his ideal life. It's crazy how one simple idea can transform everything.
Right? And here's a story from someone who applied the 80-20 rule in a more traditional career. Meet Elizabeth, a marketing manager at a mid-sized company. Elizabeth was overwhelmed with her workload, too many emails, meetings, and projects. But when she applied the 80-20 rule, she realized that 20% of her campaigns brought in 80% of her company's leads. So she doubled down on those high-performing campaigns, reduced time spent on lower-impact tasks, and started outsourcing administrative work. Not only did her productivity skyrocket, but she was promoted to a director position within a year.
That's incredible. It's so powerful to see how a simple shift in mindset can lead to massive results. In Elizabeth's case, she took control of her time by focusing on the most valuable tasks. And that's something anyone can do, no matter their industry or role.
Exactly. The 80-20 rule doesn't require a massive transformation. It's about making smarter decisions about where to focus your energy. And this doesn't just apply to work. Look at someone like Warren Buffett, one of the richest people in the world. He talks about how successful people say no to almost everything. Buffett's focus on a few key investments has been a huge part of his wealth-building strategy.
Yeah, Warren Buffett's entire approach is about identifying a few high-potential investments, those 20%, and ignoring the rest. He's not jumping into every opportunity that comes his way. He's selectively focused, and that's helped him build one of the most successful portfolios in history.
Exactly. It's a great reminder that the power of the 80-20 rule isn't just in doing less, it's in doing what matters most. And the results speak for themselves. From Richard Branson to Tim Ferriss, Elizabeth, and Warren Buffett, the 80-20 rule has been an essential part of their success.
These stories are so inspiring. It just goes to show that anyone, no matter where they're starting from, can apply this rule and see incredible results. The key is to stop trying to do everything and focus on the things that make the biggest impact.
Exactly. And the beauty of the 80-20 rule is that it's not just about reducing work or eliminating tasks. It's about maximizing the right tasks. When you focus on the high-impact 20%, everything else starts to fall into place.
So whether you're building a business, growing your career, or just trying to be more productive in your daily life, the 80-20 rule can be the game changer you've been looking for.
That's right. And for everyone listening, remember this. The stories we've shared today didn't happen overnight. These people embraced the 80-20 rule over time, and you can too. Start small, focus on what works, and watch your success grow.
Wow, what an incredible journey we've had today, exploring the 80-20 rule and how it can transform the way we work, live, and grow. From understanding its core principles to hearing real-life success stories and learning actionable strategies, you now have everything you need to start working smarter, not harder.
Absolutely, Adam. The 80-20 rule is such a simple yet powerful concept. Whether you're looking to streamline your day-to-day tasks, grow your business, or just create more time for the things that truly matter, it all starts with focusing on the few things that make the biggest impact.
And remember, this isn't about perfection. It's about progress. Start small. Identify just one or two areas in your life where you can apply the 80-20 rule. Take that first step today, and you'll start seeing changes faster than you think.
Exactly. And don't forget, this is a mindset shift. The more you practice it, the better you'll get at recognizing what matters most. Keep coming back to the question, am I focusing on the 20% that creates 80% of the results?
Before we go, we'd love to hear from you. What's one area of your life where you'll start applying the 80-20 rule today? Drop it in the comments below. We can't wait to see your ideas.
And if you found this conversation valuable, don't forget to like this video, share it with someone who could use this advice, and subscribe to our channel. We've got so many exciting topics coming up that you won't want to miss.
That's right. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you're the first to know when our next episode drops. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. Remember, it's not about doing everything, it's about doing what matters most.
Stay focused, stay intentional, and remember, the key to success isn't working harder, it's working smarter. Until next time, take care and keep striving for your best. See you in the next episode. Thank you.